Okay, this is from the book God Dictated to Me, of almost 50 chapters that I've been putting on YouTube, one chapter at a time. And you can access the books themselves on the internet, and you can find all that information out on my YouTube channel. This is chapter 33, a house of prayer. And this was dictated to me by God as he dictated the Torah to Moses. He's back. This is the day of the Lord. I know your rabbis don't teach it. They talk about the Messianic era and this and that. But the fact is, Jeremiah tells you when that day is. When the land blooms again. The ruined cities restored and Jerusalem rebuilt. God says, I'll make a new covenant with you. And you can't find that covenant again until you get to the last page of the prophets, Malachi 3. And that's where God announces the day of the Lord. And that his angel of the covenant you desire is already on the way. So it's all happening, for the Jewish people. 3 religions of Abraham. Christianity, Islam, the Jewish people, the God of Israel. Well, only one can win out on that, and it is hands down the Jewish people. Hands down. This is a house of prayer for all peoples, means of a house of prayer for all Jewish people. That's something I've heard too many Christians talk about. Well, we'll be able to go to the house of prayer. No, you can't. And that doesn't even matter if you're an Israeli Christian. Just listen to this. It's very interesting. And of course, God taught me all this before he dictated it to me. The northern kingdom of Samaria was inhabited by gentiles, imported by the Assyrians, who had defeated the Israelites of the north before the Assyrians were defeated by the Babylonians. The Babylonians, who later defeated the southern kingdom of Judah and deported them to the lands of Assyria, Babylon, completed the total exile of the 13 tribes of Israel from the lands of Abraham. This is 2 Kings, chapter 17, verses 5 through 6. Then the king of Assyria marched against the whole land. He came to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years. Samaria is the northern kingdom, also sometimes called Israel, sometimes Ephraim. And besieged it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria captured Samaria. He deported the Israelites to Assyria and settled them in Halah, at the river Habor, at the River Gozan, and in the towns of Media. The king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cuthah, Avva, Hamath, and Sepharvaim, and he settled them in the towns of Samaria. Deported Israelites, imported Gentiles to the northern kingdom. Settled them in the towns of Samaria in place of the Israelites. They took possession of Samaria and dwelt in its towns. This is 2 Kings chapter 17, verses 32 through 35. They worshiped the Lord. That would be the God of Israel, the Lord. But they also appointed from their own ranks priests of the shrines who officiated for them in the cult places. They worshiped the Lord while serving their own gods, according to the practices of the nations from which they had been deported. To this day, they followed their former practice. They do not worship the Lord properly. They do not follow the laws and practices, the teachings and instruction that the Lord enjoined upon the descendants of Jacob, who was given the name Israel, with whom he made a covenant, and whom he commanded, you shall worship no other gods. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. God said, as the foreigners who attach themselves to the Lord to minister to him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, all will keep the Sabbath and do not profane it, and who hold fast to my covenant. That's the covenant between God and the Israelites, the Jewish people. I will bring them to my sacred mount. That would be a reference to the Temple Mount, but really we're talking about Mount Zion itself. He doesn't plan on he's going to place his temple amongst the Jewish people again, but he doesn't want it on the Temple Mount. A lot of the reasons: Jordan controls it too much. Islam's tainted it. You got the Golden Dome up there. But he wants it on Mount Zion. That would be his where he wants the temple to be. You shall worship no other gods. You shall not bow down to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. God says, as the foreigners who attach themselves to the Lord to minister to him and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, I will bring them to my sacred mount and let them rejoice in my house of prayer, holding fast to the covenant he made with the Israelites. I will their burnt offerings and sacrifices shall be welcome on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. But ultimately, we see what we're talking about. That's for all Jewish people, because the Christians aren't going to be holding fast to that covenant, and neither is Islam, whether Israeli or not. It basically would mean converting to Judaism. If you wanted to go into God's house of prayer, which would be his temple, his house. In Judaism today, this would mean converting to Judaism, applied to foreigners, including Christian Israelis and Muslim Israelis. If they want to enter the third temple, they must hold fast to God's covenant with the Jewish people. They must follow the laws and practices, the teachings and instruction that the Lord enjoined upon them, upon the descendants of Jacob. That was through Moses, who was given the name Israel, with whom he made the covenant. A house of prayer for all peoples means a house of prayer for all Jewish people who are people from the nations of the earth. God knew they would be defeated, deported, and dispersed throughout the world, and they were. This was a part of God's plan when he formed Israel for the new heaven he was creating. He chose them and the land for them and had the Hebrew Bible written at his command and direction. That's the entire Bible. That's not just the Torah. He had the man write every one of the chapters, some man, one or another. Isaiah, you're supposed to look at it and just go, well, Isaiah wrote Isaiah. Malachi wrote Malachi. Moses wrote the Torah, of course. Because, it'd be too hard to have the information that comes together between Isaiah 11 and 53, Jeremiah 31, Ezekiel, and Malachi 3 to discover when God's going to be here to give the new covenant. And who he's going to give it to to convey to the Jewish people. His prophet like Moses, he mentions in the Torah. He's got to have a guy. And that guy is described in Isaiah 53. God's righteous servant, Moshiach, as they believed in the Torah. That the man described in Isaiah 11 had to have a physical description for anybody to recognize him. And they found that description to be Isaiah 53, with some exceptions. But for the most part, that's what they believed, and they called him the leper scholar, a scholar, but diseased. And you can see the word disease 2 times in Isaiah 53. And that he makes the many righteous by his knowledge, not by human sacrifice and not by his blood, by his knowledge. That's also in 53. So he had the entire Hebrew Bible written at his command and direction through his anointed ones and his prophets. God is creating a new heaven of the spirits and souls of the Jewish people for the name of Israel to endure. And this is in the Hebrew Bible. What are you doing, God? I'm making a new world and a new heaven. Well, what's new about the heaven? It's going to be filled with the angels Israel. Those who are righteous and in right standing with him will be placed in angelic bodies as a new host of the Lord of hosts. A host of angels representing the people of the world. The angels of Israel. Okay, that was 33. I'll be doing 34 next. And it's called God's Power in Creation. Thank you for watching.